G'day! Welcome to the House of Mario, the South Australian Nintendo podcast backed by 120 Power Star rating. If you love Nintendo, come on in. Woohoo! G'day everybody and welcome to the House of Mario, the South Australian Nintendo podcast that is backed by a 120 Power Star rating. I'm your host Drew Agnew and the doors to episode 254 are open. Hope you're going well. Hope you're having a fantastic day wherever and whenever you're checking out the show. And this episode, it was very nice to be introduced by Super Mario himself. He finally swung around the house to make sure we're looking after things. But I think he's quite happy with how things are going. But look, I can't lie. That actually wasn't Super Mario. Now that I'm on video, I can't do little funny tricks like that. And have you guys believed them? Because believe it or not, that actually was me. I was doing the voice of Super Mario. He did, in fact, not come to the House of Mario. But I thought I would try and, get that Mario voice going now that Charles Martinet has finally put out his little going away video. He's no longer the voice of Super Mario officially within the games. So that's a good chance for a big old Drooby to step in. He's never voice acted in his life. He's never practiced. He's never coached. But I'm sure he could step up to one of the most iconic voices in modern media. Sure, why not? How hard can it be? I'd imagine there would be some things like, there's all of the Mario, there's the two Mario brothers, there's Wario, Waluigi. So there's a lot of stuff going on there to get some lines covered. Be like Waluigi, Waluigi time. That's Waluigi's Wario. It's a bit deeper, like Wario. Mate, I don't have Luigi. Luigi's one of the characters which I haven't really thought about that much. Be like, no, no. we got to practice our Luigi. But look, I'll get there. I'll be the voice of Mario one day. Don't you worry about that. From humble beginnings here at the House of Mario all the way to the big end itself. But in all seriousness, just a massive respect to Charles Martinet for just his legacy he's laid out over the decades of voicing the character. That iconic voice come from his head. And who knows if Mario would be where it is today, just with how recognizable that voice is. Because all of the sound effects, the theme, everything from the first game was just so iconic. And then going into the 3D era with Mario 64, it was just brought into a brand new light through his voice. So just, Charles Martinet's done a lot for the gaming industry and Nintendo as we know it today. So big shout out to him. I'm glad that he's an ambassador. He's going to be doing his thing from now on. Gets to go around conventions and get paid to sign autographs and all that type of thing. It's pretty cool. Nintendo did actually release like a 3-minute video with Shigeru Miyamoto and Charles Martinet sort of discussing, just thanking one another for, creating Mario and also voicing Mario. There's a lot of talking about bringing joy to players across the world and stuff like that. So yeah, fair enough. They said bring joy to players probably 10 times within 3 minutes. So, we got the point. You have brought a lot of joy to a lot of people throughout the years. So yes, that is true. But I was sort of watching and being like, yeah, this could have been like, it could have been like 1 minute. But I can't talk. Here we are doing a podcast. I'll probably ramble on as it is. But yes. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, Charles Martinet, thank you very much for your time, your service. And I will be taking your job now that you've stepped down. You've left a hole open. I'm going to dive in that hole, mate. I'm going to dive right in that hole. I'm going to take it. Yeah, if anybody wants to just, this is how it works. I'm sure you get just like recommended. Like, yeah, I reckon that guy from the House of Mario podcast should have voiced Mario. Like, send a letter to Nintendo. I'm sure they'll read it, and yeah, they'll get in contact with me, and that's how I expect things to happen. But I do wonder, like, with the Mario cast already being, cast for WarioWare Move It and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, I wonder if we're ever going to find out who those people are, apart from just credits at the end when we finish the games. Because are they actually going to like give Mario a new voice, a new face of the voice of Mario, like Charles Martinet was? Or are they going to keep it just down low and just have the name in the credits, not have it as like a public persona? And so that each game they can hire someone different. Like the voice is bigger than any person, even bigger than Charles Martinet. That's just how iconic the voice is. So just from a behind the scenes point of view, I'm really interested to see what they'll do with that. Whether we will see a new voice or a new face of the voice, or the voice will just live on through multiple people over the years and it won't be nailed down to one particular person. But we'll find out when we complete Mario Wonder, I think. Unless we get it in the Direct. There's been rumors of a Direct in a couple of weeks. That'll be exciting. I don't know what they're going to be talking about though, because we've got so many games sort of outlined for the rest of this year. Are we going to be seeing more games like early next year? There's a lot going on, rumor-wise. But the last week, I actually had a lot of fun playing Pokemon Go. I mentioned it last episode, but I was getting back into it, and they had Pokemon Go Fest 2023, and this is a global event that you can buy a ticket for, and you can participate wherever in the world you are. And I spent the day with my son. We were at the playground, and I actually ran into one of my good old friends from, well, it was almost primary school when we were all friends, and he's a dad as well. So we were both at the playground, and we did some trading. He needed some Pokemon he needed a Mr. Mime, and he needed a Mr. Mime and a Tauros. They're like regional Pokemon that I actually had through an event maybe a couple of years ago. I think it was another Pokemon Go Fest. So I was able to trade him a Mr. Mime and a Tauros, and it made him very happy. Asked for nothing in return. That's just the good old bloke I am. Bloody hell, it's nothing, mate. But in a couple of years' time, I'd be like, mate, I need some cash. And he'd be like, mate, I'm not giving you cash. But I'll say to him, mate, I gave you that Mr. Mime and Tauros. You fucking owe me. I'll get really aggressive about it too. Not so much. So yeah, I've been enjoying Pokemon Go. I did pay for that event, but for the most part, I've just been like going running, going for walks, and I've actually been smashing the 50k weekly limit as well. Been getting over that, been getting like the max rewards. And before that, I don't think I've ever actually hit the 50k mark on Pokemon Go. For those that don't play, if you like do a certain amount of Ks throughout the week, it gets added up. And then on the Monday, you get bonuses like Pokeballs, a couple of eggs, just stuff to help you with your game. And I've been doing the 50k, so good for me. I think it's just because I'm wearing like the Apple Watch a lot more, and yeah, it just actually tallies things up. So yeah, been enjoying the Pokemon Go, and been playing some other things, so I'll talk about a little bit later. But I want to jump into the Super Mario Bros. Nintendo Direct. It's 15 minutes of telling us what's going on in this brand new 2D Mario game, and it looks awesome. I don't even mean to say the pun, but they actually picked a really suitable word for the game they're making. It looks wonderful. It looks awesome. I cannot wait to play it. It's been over 10 years since the last 2D Mario game, unless, you didn't have a Wii U and you recently played, was it New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe? But, for the most part, if you've been playing every Nintendo console, you bought the Wii U, you suffered through it. It's been 10 years since the last 2D Mario game, and we've been waiting for a long time for a shake-up, something new, and this certainly looks like it. In some ways, though, when I look at it, it looks very similar to New Super Mario Bros. U, but it's only when you look closely at the characters, everything just looks so much more animated, detailed, and just the whole sort of every character's animation and personality that just exudes out of them. It looks awesome. I cannot wait to play some of these characters. One of the things that actually impressed me the most was actually like the selection of characters that you have access to. I love that you have Daisy and Peach in there, and obviously you got Mario and what's his name? Luigi, the brother nobody cares about. Of course, no one cares about Luigi. No one cares about Luigi's Mansion or any of those games. It's very overlooked. And the couple of colors of Toads and Toadette. I think that's awesome that you can play as them. But I was super excited when I saw Yoshi, and just the fact that he is I guess like the young kid's character. He's invincible, can't die unless he falls off a cliff or falls in lava, that type of thing. And I got to admit, I was really disappointed because when I saw Yoshi, I'm like, yes, I'm playing as him. That is the character I will be playing as, because no matter how many characters they add to Mario Kart or any of these other games, I will be 100% playing Yoshi. But man, it's a little bit heartbreaking just that, Yoshi's the character. So maybe my son, when he's old enough, he can play as Yoshi. But me at 29 years old, I can't play as Yoshi. What will people think? It's like, Drew, are you playing the character that can't die? But yeah, I am. I just want to see Yoshi jump around. I want to play as a Yoshi rather than another Yoshi. Like, that is the type of revolution I'm looking for when it comes to 2D Mario. Yoshi on Yoshi action. Not in the sick way, just the cool, cute way. You know what I mean? But in all seriousness, one of the parts I was so excited about was when Yoshi swallowed an enemy. And usually in like Yoshi's Island and stuff like that, his cheeks blow up and he's just got his mouth full. But in this game, he's like bottom lip went over his nose. I'm like, whoa, it looked so cute. It looks really awesome. So I'm looking forward to playing a couple of levels as Yoshi. Nabbit looks pretty cool too. How he brought out his hat, he could float down, and Yoshi had his flutter kick like he does from Yoshi's Island. But the other characters as well, just like they can use power-ups, have access to Wonder Seeds, and all of that too. And the power-ups look awesome. The elephant fruit looks wonderful. The drill hat looks great. And the little bubble power-up as well looked interesting. It looked the least appealing out of the three, but getting your hands on it and seeing what type of puzzles and shortcuts and secret exits and things like that, if they implement some of that stuff and how you can use it, that's when the game will really kick into gear. So really looking forward to jumping into the game. The characters, the art design, all looks awesome. But they talked about badges in this Nintendo Direct as well. How like some may enhance your wall jumping abilities, others give you a dolphin kick when you're swimming, others you can like shoot vines out of your hands. Looks like you're Spider-Man, in case you don't get enough Spider-Man action on the October 20th. And there's a bunch of badges. So I'm looking forward to playing through some of them. And some of these abilities kind of remind me a little bit of like maybe some other 2D games like Celeste, or some other indie titles where you're actually able to put different modifiers on your characters and have it like a little bit more fast, a little bit more gameplay orientated. So it looks like a lot of fun. Can't wait to dive into that, especially with all the challenges and the speed runs and things like that implemented in this game. And as well as like the multiplayer, the local multiplayer was pretty much what I expected it to be, what you probably expect from previous Mario games, especially like New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Mario Bros. Wii, where you're all together just causing mayhem. Just in some ways it might be a fun time, other times it might not be so much fun. But I've got to be honest, that the online play did impress me a bit. It seems a little bit strange that you can't do the same that you do locally, where you all jump together and you could like jump on each other, ride each other, do whatever you need to do. But it seems like you can play with one another, but it's, you're transparent and you're not actually interacting with one another. You can see each other. You can lay out some signs as some spawn points. So if somebody dies, they can come back instead of going back to the middle of the level or the start of the level. That seems pretty cool. And I actually kind of like that because for the most part, I'm not going to be reaching out to friends to be like, hey, do you want to play some 4-player Mario? It's probably just not going to happen for the most part. Going to be playing by myself on my TV, just having fun that way. So I hope that it's just going to be good. And in the end, they announced a brand new Nintendo Switch Special Edition Mario Red Edition for the Nintendo Switch OLED. And this was rumored beforehand, and I was a little bit nervous because with the first Nintendo Switch, they released a Mario Red version as well, and I absolutely loved it. I traded in my original for it, and I loved the red exterior, and it's the only actual Nintendo Switch that actually has a different color. You know, you can get different Joy-Cons, all of that. And for the most part, with the special editions, they got like patterns on the back and all of that, you know, fun stuff. And a lot look great. But this was the first one that was actually like red. It's just a different color. And when it was rumored, I'm like, oh, I really like my red one, but I couldn't go back to it after having an OLED. So the fact that they were bringing out an actual OLED for this, I was a little bit nervous in some ways. Just like, all right, you know, I don't really want to be spending money on a new Switch. There's a lot of reasons why, inflation, all of that type of stuff. I've already got 6. You know, do I need a 7th? Probably not, but I'll be tempted. And at the end of the direct, they showed it off. Looks, you know, exactly the same, exactly what I expected. But it doesn't have like red around the border on the front. It's just the exact same front of just the normal Switch OLED. So fortunately, you know, Nintendo sort of stuffed that up, and I feel safe that I don't need to get one. And comparing it to my other Nintendo Switch as well, the Mario Red version, you don't get a carry case. On that other version, the Joy-Con grip was blue as well. So it just had a lot more detail in it, as well as like the straps for the Joy-Con. They were Mario colored, and the little bit that you used to tighten up the wrist strap was yellow. So it looks like a coin. But this has sort of none of that. It's just like all red. There's nothing blue in it. You just get a black Joy-Con grip. Not that I use the Joy-Con grip anyway. I'm not a serial killer as far as that goes. I'm only joking if you use that. But yeah, I can't play with the Joy-Con grip in TV mode. But yeah, so I feel safe because yeah, it just, that tiny little border around the front would have just sealed the deal for me. But it's frustrating in some ways because I can understand why, because that little bit of plastic that goes around the front, you know, they would have to completely change whatever's going on in the factory to like make that little change to get the color right. Whereas it, you know, would have just been more simple just to keep it how it is and have the rest of the plastic shell red. So I understand why. It's similar to why on the Mario Red edition previously, the little kickstand, the little flap on the original Switch, it was black. So it just stood out like anything when it was on the back, which is just really frustrating because yeah, they obviously just like, look, this little bit of plastic, we're not going to print it in red. You know, that will, you know, tamper with the construction line or whatever a little bit too much. So I'm safe. I know a lot of people are poo-pooing it because it's a really bad Mario special edition, but red's my favorite color, so it works out. That's the only reason. I just want a red one. I don't particularly need a Mario one. But the most Mario stuff's on the dock itself, but it's on the back. So if you look on the back, there's a little Mario silhouette as well as coins if you take off the back cover and you have them next to the USB ports. But kind of strange in some ways, but yeah, that's their big Mario edition. It's just kind of boring. But I think all of the Switches in general, like the special editions, they have been boring. It's just sort of how it's been. You might say, well, if they've been boring, how come you got 6 of them? You know, I'm like, yeah, touche, you got me. Couldn't answer that question. But also around the time I've just started recording this as well, we've gotten some sort of reports from different outlets that Nintendo has been showing the next generation console behind doors at Gamescom a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, in some ways it makes sense. There's no real sort of place developers gather, like in that type of mass like there were before. I think E3 would have been that typical place within the States and, you know, everyone's coming together. But now E3 out the window and some Game Fest as well, you know, not being quite as big, maybe not drawing in quite as many developers and publishers. I think Gamescom actually sounds like a pretty suitable place for it, especially the fact that, you know, Nintendo was there. So I'm just going to read this from PCMag.com and sort of, you know, talk about it from there. It's pretty exciting if this is real, but of course, take it with just a massive grain of salt. So the article reads, Nintendo is ready to start showing developers Switch 2 hardware and is using a modified version of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild to demonstrate what the new console can do. As Eurogamer reports, during Gamescom last month in Cologne, Nintendo held meetings with game developers and publishers behind closed doors. Prototype Switch 2 hardware was used to run Breath of the Wild, We already know how good the game can look thanks to PC emulation, as well as a number of tech demos. No details have been shared as to how capable the new hybrid console is, but the meetings are a clear sign that Nintendo is preparing for a launch. We're not expecting the Switch 2 to launch this year, but earlier rather than later in 2024 seems likely now. For reference, the Switch launched in March 3rd in 2017, which was a Friday. The equivalent in 2024 would either be March 1st or March 8th. Nintendo certainly isn't done with the original Switch just yet, and is hoping to keep strong sales for the rest of the year. Alongside the limited edition Mario Red console, we have Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Luigi's Mansion 2, and a new Princess Peach game to look forward to. Anyone currently enjoying The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom may be disappointed to discover Nintendo isn't releasing any DLC for the game. However, a new Zelda game is planned and is clearly being released for Switch 2. Perhaps we'll get a re-release upgrade for Breath of the Wild on the new console. So a bit of conjecture at the end there. But yeah, we got some sort of interesting things. I don't think... it's nothing that actually tells us, like, this is what it's going to be called, this is what it's going to be when it's going to come out. There's a lot of sort of guesswork to come out. I can tell everybody right now, I did not get access behind closed doors at Gamescom, but I can tell you right now, it will not come out in March next year. It will come out the earliest, mid-year, or it will be like a holiday item, much like you would expect from a traditional console launch. And the reason that is because with the launch of the Switch, they were in a completely different place. Nintendo was no longer producing Wii U's for 3 months at that point. They stopped producing Wii U's at the end of 2016. And going into 2017, they were putting all their eggs into the Switch basket. And, if that worked, it worked. If it didn't, Nintendo would look very different today as it currently does. But they're still trying to push Switches. They've got Mario Wonder. They've got Mario RPG. They've got, they've got, WarioWare. That game I'm really looking forward to. They've got a bunch of stuff coming out. They're going to be pushing Switches really hard over the holiday season. I think it would be a massive mistake to, try and push Switch and get new audiences into the console and then just hit them with a 1-2 punch, being like, all right, you just got a Switch for Christmas and there's another one out. Like, that'd be pretty rough. And so yeah, we're definitely probably maybe not going to get Switch 2 in March. But I can see like a little bit more time in between that. Say like if they want to release the next console a little bit earlier, so like all the hardcore adopters buy it, they can still produce more for the holiday season. And then going into the holiday season, they've got it in hardcore people's hands that can push it and basically word of mouth advertise it to other people leading into Christmas, rather than just being like the very start, during the Christmas rush when everyone's going to get presents and things like that. So, yeah. So I would expect earliest June, like mid-year, and I think like a September launch pretty much this time next year would be a perfect time. Get it out a little bit earlier. Don't just do the big holiday Black Friday rush. Don't jump into that, but try and get it out a little bit earlier. But it depends where they are as far as, getting it together and getting launch games ready. And there's a lot of factors coming into it. I think as long as they have a heavy hitting game and the OS and that doesn't crash, we'll be getting it, hopefully get it out that little bit earlier before Christmas. But it's interesting that a lot of reports are like reporting that it's extremely powerful. It's capable of ray tracing, and it's got PS5 comparable graphics, and there's a lot of things where I'm like, whoa, don't get too ahead of yourself. That sounds a little bit ridiculous. Like the size of a PC to run that type of spec, the size of a PlayStation 5, the size of an Xbox Series S, even getting that to a handheld would be very impressive. Even comparing it to like my Asus ROG Ally. That's a thick boy, but it's also not pumping out PlayStation 5 comparable graphics. It's not pumping out, all that type of thing. And so it'll be interesting to see if that's true, if people are just, exaggerating it a little bit, or if that's true, that is exciting. Because from Nintendo's perspective, when you look at the Switch, it's a massive success. Their games are selling bonkers. Just how well their games are selling, it's so impressive. From Mario Kart, Super Smash Brothers, all the Pokemon games, they're all smashing over 20 million each, which is absolutely crazy. But when you look at their profits compared to PlayStation, Apple, especially Apple's, with the App Store, it's just absolutely nuts. But they're not making as much money because a lot of third-party games are not on Switch. Obviously, the indie games are great. That's where I love playing my indie titles. But, all of the big hitting games this year, whether it's from, Jedi Survivor, whether it's from Street Fighter 6, and there's a lot of games like that, just the multi-platform games that aren't on a Nintendo console. So while Nintendo aren't really all that worried about power, they may really want all of those games on their platform. So people are engaged and spending money. They're getting the 30% rip, and that's what they see moving forward. Because with Nintendo's position in the market now, I don't think they'll keep going how they are now. They'll keep the hybrid model. I think people want that. I want that, that's for sure. But they also want to sort of step it up and I think take a little bit more away or just step into what PlayStation and Xbox doing a little bit more. Obviously not fully, but they do want more of those games on their platform that people are playing. And I think it's just a given as well, even if it's not super powerful and it's more comparable to a PlayStation 4. Just think about how many more games that next console has access to over the last 10 years of those other platforms. Where stuff like Elden Ring had a PlayStation 4 version as well as PS5 version. And we're also seeing Jedi Survivor get a PlayStation 4 version. It's being ported backwards. And I highly believe that's because that game is being targeted for the next generation Nintendo console. And I'll be surprised if that game isn't a launch title for early in that console's life as well. It is interesting, that, the new console will be giving sort of life back to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in some ways, and vice versa. It will be in that world, but it might be closer to the current generation consoles than we think. But I wouldn't get too excited about that, because they can make it as powerful as they want, but it needs a battery and all that to be able to run it. Whether it's just because it might just run stuff like that when it's docked, that'll be a great sort of way to go about it. Very excited to find out more about it, but it's not a surprise that developers and maybe press did get a look at it, because people need to start making games about it and getting ideas about how they can use the new tech and the new ideas. I dare say Nintendo's going to be pumping into it, but man, can't wait. It's going to be a wicked year next year. Because I'm just on my Nintendo news now, and Universo claims that the final Switch 2 hardware has 12 gigabytes of RAM, ray tracing possible, plus DLSS 3.1. And the DLSS, I can't say, DLSS is actually the really exciting part, because that's what's going to upscale it from whatever resolution it can natively produce up to 4K for modern TVs, and that'll be something that'll be wicked just in general, because I think like my Asus ROG Ally, it is just a PC, and when it is performing 4K on a TV, when you plug it in for a USB-C, it is producing that 4K itself, and it's not great on the battery, it's not great on performance for everything else that's going on when it comes to frame rate and graphical fidelity. So DLSS is a great thing if it has it. But that is just stuff that's written online and is not in front of our faces. So we will find out later one day. But let's keep an eye out. It's going to be awesome once we get the word from Nintendo themselves. So let's jump into some housekeeping before we continue on with the show. I just wanted you guys to go and check out youtube.com/iDruby, where you can support the show. You can subscribe. You can do all that type of stuff. Just do what you do on YouTube. It is what it is. I'm actually at 199 subscribers. So if anybody hasn't, get me to 200. I just need one more. Just one more cheeky little subscriber. That's all I need. And this week's sleepover episode, the guest spot here at the House of Mario, had my good friend Barry Carenza on the show. He's a part of the Nintendo Fuse podcast, as well as Premium Edition Games, where they print limited runs of Nintendo Switch and PlayStation games. So very exciting. And we talked for 3 hours, a bunch of things. He's just had his little baby boy. So we talked a lot about being a dad, and he's very knowledgeable about JRPGs and all of that stuff too. We talked about so much. Yeah, there's a lot in that 3 hours. So please go and check out the episode and support Barry for giving his time and his energy to the show. I really do appreciate it. So absolutely. All right, so this is, I got a bit of an update to my 2023 gaming challenge, and I finished 2 games since last episode. The first game being Stray Gods, a role-playing musical. And this is a game that when I heard about it, I think I was listening to Kind of Funny Games Daily, their news show at the time, and they brought it up, and I'm like, that game sounds really cool. Hadn't actually seen any screenshots, but I just heard the idea about a game that is a musical and you're making decisions and that's affecting the songs and the outcome of the story as you go along. And I'm like, fantastic. That's on my radar and it's coming to Switch. I'm bloody beautiful. Very nice. And it was only later on that I found out that it's an Australian-made game as well, right here in Melbourne. Not that I'm in Melbourne, but Melbourne's pretty close to me. Good old chill 5 hours away. Day trip away. Don't take too long. We'll be going there soon for PAX. And it's made by a studio called Summerfall Studios. And I'm like, very cool. So, it made me even more excited about it because the idea of just a really unique idea coming from Australia. Always got a bit of a bias when it comes to Australian games. Our game sort of, I guess, industry is so small. So it's always nice to see our country putting out some nice creative flair into the world. But the idea of the game is that you're someone called Grace, and basically a god dies in front of you, and their sort of spirit goes into you, and you become a god. But the other gods in the realm, basically, they say to you, like, look, you're up for trial. You murdered that god. And you're like, bloody oath, I bloody did not murder that god, thank you very much. And all right, you've got a week. Prove it, get some evidence, bring it back. Well, maybe I will. So you go around different gods, and as you're interacting with them, sort of solving their problems as you're going through, you sort of work out that there's a lot of issues going on in this realm, not just the fact that this other god died and that you become a god. There's a lot more to it. So you go around sort of solving people's problems, and you do that through the art of music, obviously, since it's a musical. God forbid you could just do whatever. Because your ability, now that you are a god, you can make other people sing. Just bring out their emotions through singing. And is that the best power to have? Maybe not. Especially since this other god died. She could have had a super strength or something to fight off the person that wanted to kill her. But no, she had that. But it makes for a good gameplay mechanic. As you are going throughout the game, making choices, and they drastically impact the song and the story as you go along as well. And I really enjoyed it. It took me about 5 hours to complete, get to the end of the story. There's a bunch of different outcomes you can affect and trigger throughout the game. So I'm not sure how much the true ending can change. I think it basically ends up the same, but from what I understand, there's a different... there's like a character where I had a choice and you can just completely change their trajectory. So I'm like, I wonder what would have happened if I did this or I did that. Makes you sort of think sometimes. But I checked out the album on Apple Podcasts, and there's so many versions of every song because there's different choices you can make. But when I checked out the music and I was just listening to it just on the streaming service, I also noticed that like the music itself wasn't enough to draw me in. It wasn't like, for example, like The Greatest Showman, for example. That's my favorite movie. And I'm typically not even a musical person when it comes to like musical movies. But I love that soundtrack and I listen to it again and again and again. And I can basically relive the story through those songs. But in this one, it's kind of, they all kind of blend together. They sound kind of samey. And maybe that's just my taste in music as well. and that the actual game, just having the decisions and being able to interact with the game probably helped me enjoy it a bit more rather than just the music itself. That wasn't the main draw for me. But that's kind of the only negative I've got to go with it. It took me a little bit to get into the story as well. Just, you know, after half an hour, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sort of getting into it now. But it was sort of a slow burn to sort of understand what the hook was and why I wanted to work things out, what the truth was, all of that. So definitely a game I'd recommend if you're into something unique to support a developer that's trying new things. Definitely give this one a go. It's not really a cheap game. It's $45 Australian. So it's not just, you know, it's not a throwaway amount of money. It's not $20 or $30. It's a little bit more, but I will say that, you know, while it may be, you know, a decent amount of money for maybe 5 hours or so, if that's a little bit too short for you, I will say like the production values and the voice acting was pretty spot on. It's got a really star-studded cast with a bunch of voice actors you would recognize throughout the game industry, like Troy Baker, you know, other ones which aren't coming to my mind right now. But there's a bunch in there that you probably will recognize if you've played a lot of AAA games throughout the thing. And I dare say they weren't cheap to get. So, you know, the price is understandable on that front. But as far as the graphics go, like the game's not really animated. It's kind of like a comic book as you're going through it. And you're going from panel to panel in some ways. Not that you're going from panel to panel as in like it looks like you're reading a comic book, but it's like a still frame. How it's like, if someone's running away, it would be like a still frame, still frame, still frame, as they're like gradually moving away from you. So yeah, interesting sort of visual style as well. But I would recommend it if you're into murder mysteries, if you're into musicals, if you're into just trying something different. Definitely give it a go, because yeah, for me, I was playing it, and maybe if you're a bit more tired and you're not into a big action game that you're really involved in, if you've got to like parry at the right time, this is just like a sit back with the Joy-Con, just left, right, choosing your options, press A. That's pretty much it. There's nothing else to it. You can play it on a DVD remote pretty easily. So yeah, it's a recommendation from me. If you haven't tried out Stray Gods, go and pick it up. And definitely add it to your wish list if you don't want to spend $45. That's understandable. But for $30 or one day it might really go on sale for like $20, 50% off or something like that. Yeah, 100%. Check it out. Worth checking out before the end of the year anyway. And support a group of people that are trying to do something truly different within the Australian games industry. So big shout out to Stray Gods. Awesome game. And the next game I want to talk about is a game that's been in my backlog for so long, and it feels amazing to just get it off my chest and finally get it done. And that is Marvel Spider-Man on PlayStation 4. I played the remastered version on PlayStation 5. And with the upcoming game, Spider-Man 2, I was like, all right, I want to play this, so I've got to finally dust off this bad boy and play Spider-Man on PS4. And it wasn't until like afterwards where I'm like, oh, I actually went back and listened to some spoiler casts from when the game came out, and on YouTube, and I see that it says like 5 years ago underneath the video. I'm like, this game's 5 years old. I'm like 2018. I'm like, oh my god, it is true. That is so long ago. I checked out a kind of funny spoiler cast, and the guy's like, they look so much younger. I'm like, it's half a decade ago. How has this game stayed in my backlog for so long? It's ridiculous. I love Spider-Man. I like action games. I like open world games. How did this stay in my backlog for so long? It says it's been a point of contention in some ways. It's been like, where have I been? What have I been doing? And I've been thinking about this, especially since I've been doing some other shows as well in the meantime, and I brought up Spider-Man, talking on News to Reviews, which I was a guest on. Go and support Zach on podcast services, News to Reviews. I was talking about it there. And Zach, he was actually talking about his love for, you know, platinum trophies and trophies on the PlayStation side of things. And that reminded me exactly why I fell off the game. And I fell off because I was in the open world, and it says like, oh, look at all these backpacks. Go and get the backpacks. And that's a collectible in the game where Peter Parker's basically gone around the city of New York and put a bunch of his backpacks around with different I guess, references to other Spider-Man universes in there. Really sort of cool to, if you know your Spider-Man stuff. I don't really, but I recognize some things. But yeah, I went around and got all the backpacks. I got the trophy for it. And then I just, that was my 5-hour session and I just sort of fell off of it. And I got no idea why, man. So frustrating myself. But I think it's like the OCD I get from achievements. I really enjoy trophies. I love going for the platinum trophy. But I think Spider-Man, it really did show because I think I was like, all right, I want to get the platinum trophy. So I went and got the collectibles. I tried to gold rank like the sort of missions that you do in the game as well, taking down the bases. You can do like certain challenges, like you do a certain amount of throws or a certain amount of takedowns, et cetera. They're different each time. And then like if you complete those tasks, you get the gold rank. And I remember being stuck trying to do the gold rank, and I was doing the backpacks, and I was just overwhelming myself to the point where I just didn't pick the game up again. And I think that was kind of where I was with other consoles other than Switch for like a long time after Switch came out anyway. You know, there's a lot of first party PlayStation games I just haven't really played because of my time on Switch. And yeah, it's a little bit of a shame, but when I went back this time, I'm like, all right, I'll get backpacks. I'll see like a waypoint to go to the next mission. I'll get one if it's like a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, as far as when I'm swinging through New York. But I'm not just going for the platinum. I'm going to finish the story, going to have a great time, going to finally check this one off. But I'm not going to just spend hours trying to platinum this game. And that's just what I've got to do with games in general. And in some ways, I really do wish there were achievements on Switch. I think I'd really enjoy them. But at the same time, it's not a bad thing just being able to be like, not having that in the back of your head. Because if there were achievements and platinum trophies and other things that really just satisfy that dopamine hit for your OCD, it might be a different story. But I think it would be fun trying to get like a platinum equivalent for, Tears of the Kingdom. Like, I think that'd be awesome. And I might have even played it more. Or might have played it less. Who knows? I might have just been getting all the Koroks and fell off of it and never did the story as well. Who knows? But that was how I was feeling about Spider-Man. But, the game itself, finally getting back to it, playing the remaster on PS4, or PS5, sorry, and even the remaster, it came out 3 years ago. It's like, Christ, even the remastered ones, 3 years old. Like, Christ, what have I been up to? But playing the game, it is awesome. Even 5 years later, it lives up to all of the hype it ever did at launch. It's got an amazing story. It plays with the conventions of Spider-Man really well. And I loved every bit of it. The end was just amazing. Just how much cinematic quality was put into it, as you would expect from a PlayStation game on the PlayStation 4 era. And the gameplay as well, I really enjoyed it. There were some moments where I sort of thought to myself, like, am I just mushing square again and again and again and again? And that's how I'm playing. But I'm not quite sure if that's a Drew problem or that's the game problem. But there are certainly different combinations you can do. You can hold in square, then you press the triangle button, you sort of pull yourself to them in the air. You can juggle them about, you can smack them down. And it was pretty cool. I'm not going to talk about it here, but I started Miles Morales, which is like the spin-off sort of sequel lead into Spider-Man 2. And I feel like they actually introduced a bunch more powers for Miles Morales in that allowed you to shake things up a little bit more. Like at the start, you can like pull their guns away. You can jump and swing into them. You've got like your electric punch, your venom powers. So I think they actually fixed that a bit in Miles Morales. And I dare say that sort of goes on to what they're going to do in Spider-Man 2 as well. But yeah, the combat was absolutely fantastic in Spider-Man. And what I loved about it as well, just from a presentation point of view, is when you build up enough sort of focus power, you can press, is it triangle and circle at the same time? And you do like this cinematic takedown and it just looks awesome every single time. Like that is so impressive. Like no matter what angle you have the camera at or where the enemy is that you're taking down or what it is, it always looks awesome and it makes you feel awesome when you just do that awesome takedowns, like the sound that's happening as well. And when you take them down, it's just a really, really amazing time. So yeah, it was just so much fun to play. The web swinging is fantastic. It's really really impressive. So just the idea that was basically Insomniac's first take at a Spider-Man game. They did Sunset Overdrive on Xbox One, and a lot of that sort of mechanic translates really well into a Spider-Man game, just the traversal of the town and all of that. But they nailed the web swinging, they nailed like the running up buildings, and if you're sort of going over rooftops, he just automatically like does a little Spider-Man squirt and brings himself forward. Yeah, it's an amazing game to watch and play, and I love what they did with the villains, and I can't wait for Spider-Man 2. I'm playing through Miles Morales at the moment, and it's only a short game. I think it's like 8 or 10 hours if you just concentrate on the story, but just amazing. And I'm really looking forward to Spider-Man 2. I'm glad that I finally got this off the backlog, because to be honest, it's always one of those things in the back of your mind. Like, some people bring up Spider-Man, it's, oh, yeah, I've got to play that, don't I? Yeah, that's right. A little bit frustrating. Frustrate yourself sometimes. But yeah, October 20th with Mario Wonder and Spider-Man 2. Going to be awesome. And I'm almost prepared for it. So bloody look out. That's a good sort of segue into the Guru Geek Out. This is a tribute to my late friend Bobby Pauls, the Nintendo Guru, where I give a geek out and a shout out. And the Geek Out is actually just like the DualSense Edge controller for PlayStation 5. And I just want to give it a little bit of a shout out. It's a very expensive controller. It's a very whatever controller as far as battery life goes. But just the way it feels is fantastic. And I just want to sort of talk about the triggers on the DualSense Edge. How you can really sort of change the movement of them. So you can make them like a full press, like a normal controller on the PlayStation, or you can just dial it right down so it's like a little button press, like it is on the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. And for me, I'm playing it's like on the main TV, and I'm using like a normal controller. And they do the haptic feedback for the web swinging, where they make it like tougher to pull in. And when you're swinging, you like pull it in. So you're using that index finger a lot. And after a while, I know this is such a first world problem, but it is what it is. Like, it makes your finger sore. I'm like, what's the point of this? So with the DualSense Edge, I just made it so it's a button press, and I don't need to do the haptic feedback. I don't need a sore finger. And it sounds so dumb. And don't get me wrong, it's not the biggest problem in my life. Don't worry about that. But it just makes it so much easier to play the goddamn game. I'm sure you can turn off the haptic feedback and stuff like that, but it made me appreciate the Switch Pro controller as well, because it really frustrates me that they're not like an analog trigger, where like for racing games, it completely destroys the idea of a racing game on Nintendo Switch, where you can't control your acceleration. But for games like Smash Brothers, when you use it for the shield, for stuff like Mario Kart, when it's just like poof, activate an item or something like that, I think I prefer that. It's just, yeah, I definitely prefer being able to control the trigger sensitivity when it comes to playing your games. Because on PlayStation, if I'm playing Gran Turismo, I absolutely cannot have it on that little button press. I need the full motion of that trigger. But when I'm playing Spider-Man, I just want to go with my wrist. That's what I want. You know what I mean? Just want to be squirting everywhere. That's what I want to be doing. And the shout out is to my good friend Josh of Nintenvania. He celebrated 50 episodes of his podcast the other week, and I was really honored to be invited onto the show to celebrate that with him. And it's really special for him because he has a fortnightly show, so he's been doing the show for 2 years thereabouts. And I can't believe it's almost been 2 years of him doing the show, and I really love his podcast. He brings on a different guest each episode, and talks about the news and a bunch of different segments within the show. And I've really enjoyed listening to it, but more I've enjoyed really getting to know Josh, and it's been great. Becoming really good friends with Josh over I guess our love for Nintendo and podcasting, and I really do appreciate that. I went back into my my DMs, and a couple of years ago, Josh reached out and he said, like, I'm thinking about doing a Nintendo podcast type of thing. I can't remember if he asked for advice or not. I can't remember what I would have said. But, he said, oh, I'm thinking about doing it. And here we are, 50 episodes later. He's done it. He's done an awesome job. And we're at the point now where, Josh he's come to birthdays of mine. He's met my family. Both my wife and I were invited to their wedding when that happens. And, we've become really great friends. And that's really special to me because through doing podcasts, I've met so many friends through doing this. And I love so many people across the globe who I would have never met throughout doing it. And I hope one day I'll get to meet them in person. But who knows? Who knows what turns and twists life will give us. But just the fact Josh is in Adelaide, it's really special that, we're close. So we're actually able to, meet up and do things together. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him at PAX in a month's time. And we're going to be doing a lot more things as far as podcast collaborations and all that goes. So long way of saying congratulations, Josh, for 50 episodes. And looking forward to another 50, getting to episode 100, doing that type of stuff. And he's actually moving into a brand new space, a brand new house. Just bought a house. So, massive life changes going on there. But he's going to have his own space. And who knows what creative endeavors he'll get up to in that room as well. Makes a big difference. Like, he's basically in his shared area with his computer and his microphone. But he might be able to yell a little bit louder if he's got his own room. He might be able to scream a little bit. Maybe a little bit like I do if Lucas isn't in bed. Love you, Josh. Hope you're having a good one, mate. Let's move on to the topic of the show. Let's go into Reggie's Rec Room. And I was thinking about what am I going to talk about this week? What am I going to talk about? And what I want to talk about this week is a game that's actually very near and dear and special to my heart. And I think this series gets a bad rap. And it seems like a good time to talk about it now. And that is the new Super Mario Brothers series. It started on Nintendo DS in 2006. And I've got very fond memories of this game in particular, the very first game. Much like we're in the situation now where New Super Mario Brothers, that was the first 2D Mario game in over 10 years, which is crazy to think about, but it's been a similar amount of time between the last New Super Mario Brothers game and Mario Wonder. But this game was super special to me. I remember when I saw it, I was just amazed with what I was seeing. It looked awesome. And a lot of that came from my love of Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64, one of my favorite games. Just on Nintendo 64, I basically I would have stolen my friend's Nintendo 64 if I could to play that game. I just loved being in that world, exploring, enjoying the sandbox. And on the launch of the DS, it was so exciting because we were getting basically a remake of Mario 64, which actually gets poo-pooed a lot, but don't know. Drew's got a young man nostalgia for it, so I don't poo-poo it so much. But new Super Mario Super Mario 64 DS was an amazing sort of remake. Like, while it didn't have the analog stick, which the whole game was built around, you were just playing on the D-pad or the touchscreen. It introduced like a bunch of mini games as well as other playable characters, new power-ups as well. And of course, I could play as Yoshi, and playing as Yoshi was so cool because you could put on the other characters' caps, so you get Mario, Luigi, and Wario's abilities. And that was so cool. But moving into like New Super Mario Brothers on the DS, why it was awesome is like you got that move set in a 2D Mario game. So you got the ground stomp, you got the trip. Did you get triple jump? Can't remember. I think you got the triple jump, didn't you? New Super Mario Brothers, and you got the wall jump, and just those things just added so much gameplay possibilities to like a 2D Mario game. And I remember just when did I get it? I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I was trying to piece together my memories of receiving this game. It came out around my birthday, and I remember getting it for my birthday. And I think we were on a trip at the time. We're on a trip to, I think it was like a sheep event. Like when I was a kid, my parents, they went to a lot of like sheep shows and sheep events. They were part of like, a sheep society that, got together and did things. I remember being at this, like, it might have been like a university campus, might have been staying there. I just remember like just a massive building, and we were staying in some accommodation there. And I was a real little kid. I remember just being really bored. There was no other kids. There was nothing going on. But I remember receiving New Super Mario Brothers in the motel room for my birthday present. And I was just so excited. Had my DS at hand, and I just remember playing the game just that's the rest of the time while I was there. It made a long weekend into a very short gaming weekend. And it was really, really fun just being able to finally jump in and experience those new mechanics in a 2D Mario game. And it might have even been, no, that's not true. It was probably the only second 2D Mario game that I owned. Like, I had Super Mario World on Game Boy Advance, but I can't remember if at that point I would have had Mario Brothers 3 on Virtual Console yet. I'm not sure if I would have played it anywhere else. So really, New Super Mario Brothers is like just a real cultural touchstone for me as far as Mario goes. And I love like the power-ups you get in it as well. There was obviously the giant mushroom where you turn into just a giant. You can run through the level. It's timed. And after a little bit of time, you go back down to normal size. As well as like a really fun item as well. I forgot what it was called. I don't know if this was Koopa Mario or whatever. But you turn to a Koopa. You got a blue shell on the back of you, and when you run, like you like withdraw into your shell, and then you can you bounce around and you can like jump while you're in the Koopa shell. It was so much fun being able to do that. And there was a multiplayer game as well. You could do DS download play, and you were able to I think the idea was to collect as many stars as you can. And that Koopa power-up was so awesome in that, because you just get into that and you're just bouncing around. And, you're just going up to your friends and and you do that little hop just to throw them off, and you get them and knock them out. It was awesome. They didn't use that power-up anywhere near enough, though. It only felt like it was in a few levels, which was a shame. I would have played it in all the levels. But there was the tiny mushroom as well. This was the first game that the tiny mushroom was in. And it was pretty useless. It made you very weak, but you were able to jump very high. And the biggest use for it was to find secret exits in levels. So I remember like one in particular, you get like the tiny mushroom at the very start, and you've got to make the whole level with the tiny mushroom, not get hit once. And then you can go out the secret exit towards the end of the level. So it's pretty cool. As far as like getting all like the hidden coins and all of that too. It's just a really great game, just like multiplayer with DS download play. And it was always a game that it only took like 4 or 5 hours to beat once you got good at it. So if I was like waiting for another game to come out or I had nothing to play, I always just did like a playthrough on a brand new save file, run through the game, and it was always just like one of my favorite DS games. It's a really special game. And it kind of sucks that, the series just kept on doing the same thing. Like, the jump to New Super Mario Bros. Wii made sense. Like, it was such a popular game on DS. Do it again on Wii, and I did multiplayer. That's what the Wii is all about, is the multiplayer, playing together with, like, the helicopter hat and all that. Like, it's, pretty cool. But it's like, when it came to, like, 3DS and Wii U, it's like, come on, like, a new generation, do something different. Especially, like, the Wii U version. Yeah, it was a really good game, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but it's just like, it's pretty stale at this point. But where it started off with the new mechanics, the power-ups, the DS download play, it was awesome. It was really great. And you also got the mini-games from Super Mario Bros. DS as well, which were a lot of fun. It was like Whack-A-Mole. There was like casino games with Luigi, if any of you guys remember playing some of those, which you could just sit there and play poker with Luigi. And that's like a kind of a fun use of a night as it is. So yeah, there was a bunch to love about New Super Mario Brothers on DS. It's just a shame that the series went on forever, and I'm really glad that Nintendo is finally trying something a little bit differently when it comes to what they're doing with the series. So yes, New Super Mario Brothers, awesome game. I actually kind of want to go back and play it now. It's nice to go back to a system with a D-pad. Now that we don't have one on Switch, unless you're playing a Switch Lite, which Switch Lite has a good D-pad, so no complaints if you're playing on that. All right. So we got Doug Bowser's hot takes, and I actually didn't come up with a hot take to try and defend. So try and what about if I just say New Super Mario Brothers is better than Mario Wonder? Yeah, sure, why not? Let's try that one. Look at my little timer. So yeah, anyway, let's try this one out. If you have any hot takes, you can send them to me at my email, drew@thehouseofmario. You can also send me questions or topics you'd like me to cover on the show, or just have a chat with me. Drew@thehouseofmario on email. Good old classic email, eh? Who knew? Who knew? All right. New Super Mario Brothers is better than New Super Mario... Well, I stuffed that one up. Let's try it again. New Super Mario Brothers... The New Super Mario Brothers series is better than Mario Wonder, and here's why. Back in the New Super Mario Brothers series, I loved being Tiny Mario, just run through the levels, no one's seeing me, I'm all stealthy. But in Mario Wonder, you play as a big bloody elephant, just blubbing about, smacking things, and barely fitting down warp pipes. What the hell's going on with that? I don't want to be playing as a little elephant. If I want to get big, I want to play as a big mushroom man. I want to just be giant Mario stomping through the level, not being a bloody zoo animal. It's bloody ridiculous. Yeah, no, I didn't really defend it that well. But anyway, it was just off the top of my head. But anybody, guys, guys, jeez Louise. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening to episode 254 of The House of Mario. You can reach me on YouTube and social media at iDrewby, and let me know what you thought of the episode with New Super Drew Brothers. Yes, so on social media, let me know what you thought of the show with the hashtag New Super Drew Brothers. But until next time, the doors to The House of Mario, they're closed. I'll catch you later. The House of Mario, a Nintendo podcast, is recorded in the southeast of South Australia. It is produced by me, Drew Agnew, and is supported by my kind and generous housemates at patreon.com/iDrewby. Call in for my behind-the-scenes podcast, secret recordings, and heaps good, the South Aussie take on a conversational show with my good friend Josh of Nintenvania. A huge shout out to the legends who support me at the iDrewby Patreon Mega Feed tier or higher on Patreon, including Brendan Myers, Oliver Chaston, Samuel Hay, DJ, and Lemonade. Let's continue to make passionate Nintendo content as we climb the stairs to 300. Thank you.